Hey there YouTube, AJ here, and today we're going to be adding traditional air conditioning to my 1927 Model T hot rod. Now for those of you thinking, is this fool going to be adding an AC compressor to a vintage flathead motor, putting in a condenser in an already too small grill shell? No, I'm not. So what do I mean by traditional AC? Well, on this car, this flap here used to be where you filled the gas tank. Used to be a gas cap right here, and there was a gas tank in the cowl. There isn't it anymore. So I'm going to take and convert this flap, because I could smooth it out like a lot of hot rods did, but you know, I don't like the perfectly smooth look on hot rods. So I want to leave this, and I'm going to convert it to where it'll operate as a air vent, traditional cowl vent from later cars. To do that, we got to do a couple of different things. Yes, this is an open top car. I could make this very, very simple where this was completely manual from the outside. Leave this little tab on it here. Whenever I want the cowl vent open, I pop it a little bit, air goes in. I could just do that and it would work, because this is completely open right now. I could touch my pedals right now. But I don't want that. I want to do a couple different things here. One, I want to be able to pop it open from inside the car whenever I'm going down the road. To do that, I've acquired this, which is some linkage from a, I believe a 1948 Lincoln car. Now, the one thing that you probably cannot see at this time, maybe you can, I can't tell from this angle, but this knob, part of the reason I really like this linkage, I could have made my own, but I bought this instead because it has one of the red lucite knobs on it from the early Lincolns, and I love that stuff. I got to figure out how to polish it so it shows better, but we can go ahead and get everything mocked up before we polish it. So I'm going to be trying to use this linkage. Since I know where my dash is going to be located now, I can actually come inside, figure out how I can use this linkage to open and close the vent while driving. Now, the next thing I got to do is, with this open, I don't want dirt and bugs. Well, dirt's going to happen. You know, I'm not going to be able to. But let's say I don't want bugs and birds going in here and getting inside the car. I have had, from riding motorcycles and open top Jeeps and such, I know there's no way to completely eliminate this happening, but I have had wasps get inside my clothing while driving and riding and sting the living crap out of me. So I want to try to avoid getting that kind of stuff down into the footwell of my car and going up my shorts legs. So we've got to come up with some solution for that to block this off, and with a mesh of screen some type. First things first, the edges here are a little mangled. I want to do a little tune up on those, and this lid is kind of mangled as well, so I got to tune it up. I want to remove this tab because I don't want this tab sticking up on the outside. I'm not super smooth in this. I am going to leave the rivets from the spring that holds this in position. I'm not taking that off there. I'm actually going to still be using this spring for the open and close hole. So I'm not going to do that. Let's get that off there and start tuning up these edges. Well, we got this cleaned up to a degree, cleaned up enough to where I could start trying to see the metal work I need to do on it. I've got it pretty flat for the most part, straightened out my hinge. There are some lows. There's a spot here, it's a little low there. Can't get behind this without drilling these rivets out, fixing it. honestly, to me, it is not worth that kind of effort. This car is going to show the highs and lows. I don't plan on putting much, if any, body filler in this car before I paint it. I'm gonna let its wounds and scars over the years, I'm gonna let them show for the most part. So that isn't gonna bother me to have this little whoop whoop in the paint. I don't care. So let's throw this back together here, see how this fits. I did have to straighten up these edges. Oh, I did cut off this tab. I do need to do a little smoothing on that. That's no big deal. Don't need to worry about that right now. And there's a split right here that I will weld up and grind down when I do the body work. And the same thing on here. There's a little split right here that I'll weld later. But I've got this shaped up pretty good. It's mostly flat on the top. I will make eventually, taking my 3D printer and make a seal to go around this. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be kind of flat to match the flatness of the lid. So let's go ahead and put this back on and see how it fits together. Fun part is you got to get the hinge to stay under the lip on here, and you got to get the spring to go over it. The two kind of want to fight sometimes. Come on, there we go. Yeah, all right, that fits really nice. So that's good. Okay, that gets us a really nice a fit. Now we're thinking it'll open something to that degree there when we're all said and done, and using the lid to help direct air down in. Now originally I was thinking I was going to make this tunnel system that moved, the whole thing moved up and down with the lid and sealed this up. When it came up, it would seal against the bottom of this. And to be honest, I could do that, but it's going to be really complicated to do it. And it got more complicated because if you look in here, right there, there's a brace that runs from the dash rail all the way out to the firewall. On the passenger side, that brace is further back, so it doesn't affect this opening the way that one does. Now it's only like a 1/4 inch into it, but that kind of messes up my sealing around the bottom of the whole thing. So now I could cut this out right here or smash this back, but I'd rather not do that. So I thought on it, and I'm gonna try a much simpler way first, and I'm gonna design it in a way that if it doesn't flow enough air, then I can change it later. So my simpler way was to make a plate and screen that would go in here from the bottom, use tabs to hold it in the front. On the back here, it would be held by the bolts that also hold the hinge on. That way it could be removed later if I have to, simply by pulling it out of the tabs and unbolting it. But if it worked, so be it. This is going to rely completely on this door blocking air and forcing it down, because I already made that first plate. And it looks like this. So you can see it's just a piece of aluminum with holes drilled, or holes put in it, and hopefully the air will go through it. I know those holes are big enough to let a wasp or something go through it, so the idea is I'll take this frame and sandwich some screens, some stainless steel screen in there behind these holes that will keep bugs from going in. Now, will this alone be enough to block air down in? I don't know. I hope so. If it's not, we can change that design later and incorporate something with side panels here to help force air down. So, but for now, our initial go around, we're going to go with this plan. So the first thing we need to do is I've got this actually in place with the screws through it, but I can't close the door because the spring is hitting my aluminum plate here below. So this aluminum plate's got to be notched for the spring to pass through. That's a pretty big notch. So what I'm going to try to do is make a slot for that to go through. And then the spring will go underneath the panel system. I think this is going to work. It's just, I hope it flows enough air as is, and I don't have to come back and redesign something. But we'll see once it gets on the road. That's a ways off. I think I forgot to start the camera, but I went and I drilled holes, connected the holes, made a slot. We need to do the same thing on our back frame that's going to hold in the screen, the mesh, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to line that up, mark it, cut that out. Before we cut that out though, I'm going to go ahead and fit this one. Make sure our slot's big enough. Alright, now let's see if this will open and close. Yep, it went through just the way I was envisioning it. Cool. We know that that'll work, so we got to notch this out too. Alright, so we got that notched. Got to clean up the corners yet, but no big deal. Oh no.
Oh no.
I screwed up. I cut it from the wrong side. I was supposed to notch out this side, not this side. Daggone it. I could just cut it on through. It's still going to have these two bolts to hold it together. Will that be enough? I don't know. I'm probably going to end up remaking the whole thing. I'm back to where I was pretty much before I screwed up. Got the slot cut on the right side this time. Let's try to fit this in here. And I can't really hold on to that at the same time, so let's get this one on first. Might need to make those holes just a little bigger. There we go, got it. I'll put that up in there. On one side. Let's hold that while we get a nut on it started at least so we don't lose it. Yes. There we go, got it. Okay, enough for that side. Those nuts are just started, so it's not held up there tight, but if we do that. So now let's hold that back piece up in place. See if this closes still. That's going to need a little work. We'll figure that out. I'm going to tighten these screws down so this holds itself up, and then we're going to start figuring out our front latch system. And for that, we're going to turn back to this trusty spare cowl that just keeps giving and giving parts of itself for the life of this car. And right now I'm going to take this little lip here and take a couple of pieces of that because it's got like an offset built into it, and that's going to be our piece to hold our block off panel in. We're going to tack weld these two pieces up underneath the dash, and then this is what's going to hold in our plate. So here are the pieces that I made from the cowl, and they're going to go on the bottom side of the cowl like this to hold the front edge in, and the plate and the screen mesh combination will sit on this ledge. I blew a hole through the top, shoot. Well, it's in there good and sturdy at least for now. I have to get some copper and patch that hole. So if we look at this from the top side, you can see the two clips. That's what we put our front edge in. Here's the hole I blew through the top here. I'm going to put the copper on the bottom side of that hole and do some filling. Okay, I've got it where it's in there. I honestly, this is about as far as it wants to open easily. I can force it past that. I might do a little more clearancing on the aluminum plates to allow this to come up a little further. For now it's good. We can start working on the other parts of this. When we close it, it closes well. Of course, we are going to put seals in there. We're done for that part. Now we can come in here into the cab and we start figuring out how to take this, mount it up underneath the dash to where when we pull down, that opens, this will open up. So we're probably going to mount it about right there. That puts this piece pretty much in center of everything. So that part's going to work out really good. So now we got to design a bracket to drop down and hold this mechanism and a way to attach that to the flap. The way this bracket works here is there's a pivot point, it appears, and then a guide to keep it all in line that we need to be aware of. And it will be somewhat to this nature when closed, and then when you pull the lever down inside the car, it will raise this lever out here that's going to be under here to open up the flap. So we got to make a bracket somehow in here to hang this with a pivot point and a guide pin. So let's take a look underneath and see what we got. All right, well that pretty much puts everything where we would want it to be. However, I'd have to bridge something between this support and the support over there on the other side to mount something from, because my bracket needs to come down from underneath our vent. Okay, so I cut this piece of steel off of the seat brackets that used to be on my seats here. So we're going to try, this hole just happens to be the perfect size. Everything seems to be about right. So we're going to try to bolt this together and see if we can imagine something underneath. And I might need to bridge between those two braces for a mounting point for this bracket. So this is what we're talking now. I mean, we'll cut this part to where the height needs to be to get it the right height to the dash, but I'm thinking a pin here like that. So let's go back under the dash and see what we need. Obviously this bracket is currently too long, so we'd have to raise that up. Got to find something to make a piece to go across. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is mark where we need to put our guide pin. So we want it close to this front edge as possible. Okay, then now we got to go drill a hole right here, and we're going to drill and tap that for a 1/4 bolt because this is thick enough. That way we can thread the bolt in from one side and then use a lock nut on the other side to keep our piece from tightening down too much and allow the bracket to go back and forth. We've got our drop bracket, pivot bracket, whatever you want to call it, in place. That works nicely. This will be mounted like that, down to open, up to close. This will activate an arm attached to the flap. Now I got to find something to go back and forth across that those two braces. All right, so if we measure from this side to this side, we're looking at something along the lines of 16 inches. Okay, so I couldn't find anything ready-made, so I knocked up a real quick. I knocked up a piece of 18 gauge channel, real shallow channel, It's nice and stiff. Let's go ahead and see how this is going to work in here. Hitting. All right, there we go. Oh, that's so much fun. Okay, let's get our lever, see where that's gonna hit. Boy, we want to take what? At least 2 inches out of that bracket. All right, I'm gonna go cut 2 inches off this bracket. I'll be right back. It is still way too low, which is bad, because if we go to our down position, you can see we're right at the bracket. How do I move that up? If we mount this there, I guess it doesn't look too bad there. Actually, I think I'm gonna like that there. I think that'll work. We're gonna tack this all together and see how we like it. Okay, now, automotive gymnastics, people. If we take that like so, if you hold me like this, hold me like that, ow. Okay, all right, let's go cut that. Okay, well, we cut the ends to fit, and I went ahead and punched my holes in it and made speed holes. But I got ahead of myself. I forgot I still needed to weld to this thing, but I painted one side, so oh well. We'll burn off some paint when the time comes. Anyway, let's see about getting this mounted. Well, I can drill a hole in this side, but this bracket is in the way to drill the hole on that side. I really need to be able to use both hands down here. Okay, well, that's a good thing. Now if I can get the nut on the other side. Oh, success. We got one side ready to tighten down. We need to get a hole in that side over there. Oh, Jiminy Christmas. I did find a long 1/4 inch bit, and that might allow me to get a hole in my bracket. Whew. Okay, the battery died, but I went ahead and bolted that in. We weld that up to that bracket there. That is the up position. Down to open. I think that'll be good. Mark it and then weld this up. So while that paint dries, we're going to turn our attention to putting some screen in between these two. So I think what I'm going to do is just line up the front edge flush and fold over the sides. Go back here. I don't know, we'll cut it off a little wide. So now we're going to bend this. All right. Now, gotta poke some holes where the bolts go through. All right, let's go see if we can get this in there. I've got the top plate in, or at least through the holes. Now I got to get this bottom one. We've got both sides started. So the good thing, since that took me so long, my paint's probably dry enough to start working with again. So we'll get these tightened down and then we will start working on the last part of this. Up top, this is what we look like with our screen in the holes. So that should keep any bugs out, or most bugs out, big ones at least. Now we need to pop our spring back down into the hole. so. And we're ready to go get our linkage. So we've got our linkage welded to our bracket. I did get this a little crooked on there, so I might have to do some bending, straightening, something. I might be able to just take care of it in here. I don't know. We'll see. Now it's time to go ahead and put this on. Well, battery died again yesterday, so I decided that was a good place to quit. And today we're going to try to finish this thing up and get this linkage connected. I've got this little piece of 1/4" bar that I have taken and threaded the end of, so we can weld that nut to the bottom side of this lid and be able to drill a hole through the plate and run this rod through. The reason I'm using the nut is because I want this thing to be completely take apartable. Is that a word? Okay. Anyway, so that's why we're going to do it this way. So now I think what we got to do is figure out where to put this nut and where to put our hole. And I might have to bend this bar a little bit to give it an arc, since this point moves in an arc. I think that would be best if we can do that, but it can't be so much of an arc that I can't, when this is closed, thread this into the nut below. Probably should check to make sure this closes before I weld it on there too permanently. Ah. Okay, so I'm going to mark the sides of this bolt. Alright, so we got our hole in here. Got our nut up there, as ugly as that weld is. We now have it in. It goes up and down, scrapes a little, and we may have to eventually change this hole. I don't know. For now, it's fine. All right, let's see about making the final connection. Okay, right now it's in the up position, and I don't think that's going to work, because when it goes down, it's wanting to push out on the arm. See, it needs that arc, or it needs a pivot. Okay, everything is closed now. The activating lever is in its closed position, as is our damper, our flap. So if this was to go up, oh, that's got to go out. That's where it needs that curve I was talking about. And so what we're going to try to do now is to put a bend in this thing. Hopefully a consistent curve. We'll start with that. We'll see what that looks like. Okay. Now we've got it tight. Now, that does not change a thing. Okay, I think I gotta go with this. Well, yesterday, after a lot of struggling, I gave up and finally turned the camera off and just did a lot of thinking, trying to figure out how to get this to work. I could not get it to work. Then finally what I came up with, I thought what I needed, because of the motion this had, was to pull back towards the dash whenever you push the lever down. I was going to need some kind of bell crank in here, which would require another mounting pivot point, etc. And where I needed it to be, there was no real way to make that happen. So what I ended up doing instead was designing this bell crank here that I bolted to the bracket. So this bolts directly to the bracket. I eliminated the Lincoln bracket here that used to go up here because that just wasn't going to work, and gave myself a mounting point down on this arm to push straight up into my rod. In the middle of all that, I had tried straightening this rod back out, trying different ways with that, and then I ended up bending it curved again, and decided to weld a nut on right here. That gives me a place to mount a bracket arm. So my first attempt, I measured what I thought was going to work. I thought I could come from here to right here and be able to raise and lower, you know, the flap. Now this sort of worked, because if you raise it up and raise this up, it would have worked. However, it's too short, and it would have been down like that, and that results in only getting about 1 to 1.25 inches of opening on the top. I wanted more opening than that. So I did something to kind of help me figure out how to make this better. So I made this new bracket, I made it longer, and I drilled holes at 1/2 inch intervals in it, thinking I'd be able to use it to figure out a spot that works in the up and the down position, or comes to a happy medium. And you can see here, this first hole lines up with the hole that was in this arm. And it just so happens that when you bolted this in, go to raise it, it works. So now the next thing we need to do, we've got our length figured out, but in the meantime I need to take and trim up these brackets. Can't have this one sticking all the way down here, so we got to trim that one and do some cleanup here, and then probably paint them. And yeah, we'll be ready to start putting this together. Alright, let's see about putting this thing back together. Now we've got all our linkage in place, and it still needs some fine tuning. Some lubrication, etc. But anyway, we push down on our lever, it opens up, pull back. Now there is a little glitch here. If you notice, when I push down, it goes up. You gotta back off in a second and then go again. I don't know, it's kind of like a safety feature maybe, I don't know. Or just something we got to deal with later. Like I said, this could use some fine tuning. It's not perfect yet. I'm gonna test it for a while as is, and like I said, we got to make sure this thing flows enough air before we make any other decisions. I might have to be reworking this whole opening, everything up there, because if it doesn't flow as much air as I want, you know, what's the point of all this other than just having that opening? But I want it to flow air, and if not, once we eventually get this car running, we'll see how much air it flows and then see if we have to redesign it. But for now, it works, and we're gonna go with it take you up top, show you what it looks like from the top. So now we can be in here driving along. Whew. It's getting hot. Need to open up my AC. We got vents. So that's pretty cool. Starting to rain, we close it down so their feet don't get wet. But it gets hot again. Open her right back up. Hey, that's what we want. I think it's pretty cool. I like the fact that I'm reusing all the original gas tank door parts. I think it's good. I like to have cowl vent. I like a cowl vent. I don't know why people smooth out the cowls. I hate that. Anyway, I'm happy with it. It's gonna work. So that's it. Gonna do it for the end of this one. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all your support and views. Like, comment, subscribe if you can. That helps with the YouTube stuff. And until the next time, when I have no idea what we're going to be doing. Later, YouTube.